In today's brand new episode of Hill Climb Monsters in Project Cars 2, it's the turn of the absolutely epic Ferrari F50 GT to take on our Azure Coast hill climb course. Can this Italian Stallion trample the Jaguar to take top spot? Let's find out. What's going on, guys? My name is Matilio and welcome back to Project Cars 2 and a brand new episode of Hill Climb Monsters. And before we get started, apologies for just such an erratic schedule the last couple of weeks. Some of you remember, I mentioned on Twitter and on my Facebook account that I've been unwell recently. I've had the flu and I've also had some computer problems. I wanted to get this out for Monday, but things have conspired against me, so I couldn't do it, unfortunately. So apologies for that. But hopefully now we are back on track. Now, let's jump into the episode proper. This week, as you can see, we have the absolutely magnificent Ferrari F50 GT. And the reason I chose this car was basically this was a suggestion from one of you guys. Creative Suggestion Guy left a comment on my Porsche 935 Hill Climb Monsters video, suggesting I do either the F40 or the F50. And I've driven the F40, I've done an episode of Racing Randoms, and I really enjoyed driving that car, but I wanted to drive something, I haven't driven the F50, and I wanted to do something I haven't done yet, I haven't driven yet, wanted to go into sort of blind, I suppose you could say. So that's the reason I've went for the Ferrari F50 GT. Looking at the stats for it, now, there's two sets of stats for this, because normally when I come to do these episodes, I do have a look on Wikipedia to see if there's any interesting tidbits about the history of the car that I can throw into the episode to make it a little bit more informative. However, what I've just found is that the car in games seemingly has been nerfed. And I'm going to show you why. So, the engine and the transmission are exactly the same, so it's got a 4.7 litre V12 engine and 6-speed sequential gearbox. That is all true. However, the power output in the game is 600 brake horsepower. In real life, it's closer to 750 brake horsepower from what I'm looking at. Where's my other 150 brake horsepower, I wonder? 0 to 60, or looking at this, it says acceleration 0 to 100. It doesn't say whether it's kilometres an hour, it just says 0 to 100. I guarantee you that is not miles per hour, so we're just going to assume it means 0 to 100 kilometres, or closer to 60 miles an hour. So, 0 to 60 in the game, 3.3 seconds, there makes no difference. In real life, it was closer to 2.9 seconds. So it's slower. Top speed, 202 miles an hour in game. In real life, closer to 235 miles an hour. Well, pretty much dead on 235 miles an hour. So, yeah, SMS, what are you playing at? Why are you nerfing this car? What have you done? Why have you done this? I am going to tweet them with this information. Hopefully get this updated. But, yeah, that's... I expect sometimes there are little differences between cars and the real-life counterparts. But, yeah, I'm calling shenanigans on this one. And I'm not happy with it, so I'm going to tweet them, and if you haven't followed me on Twitter, you should, because you'll get to see that. Or you can tweet them yourself and say, what the hell, Slightly Mad Studios, what the hell. Anyway, I'm surprised Ferrari stand for this. I hear they're pretty strict with regards to their intellectual property, so getting the stats this wrong, I thought they would have thrown a shit fit about it, but never mind, we'll see what happens. This car obviously was due to compete in the BPR Global GT Series, but sadly it folded. They had the opportunity to go into the regular GT1 series, which I think the FIA was running at that point, or whatever counterpart it was. They decided not to because they were unhappy with the fact that the FIA allowed the 911 GT1 into the series at all. I can only assume that's due to the fact that it looks very much like a race car that was built to be a race car, and then they derived the road car from it just to satisfy the regulations. But yeah, so they decided not to do it. There was only 6 chassis built, and only 3 of them were fully completed. I think the last 3 tubs apparently were destroyed. I really hope they didn't. If you did, Ferrari, shame on you. But hopefully they're just sitting in the back of a warehouse somewhere in Italy. So yeah, that's the stats there. In terms of the practice and the setup, there really wasn't all that much to do, if I'm honest with you. It was a little bit numb initially when I got into the car and got started with it. So I had to, obviously I adjust the steering ratio. I also stiffened the front end a little bit. I reduced the spring rates just to give me a little bit more, like I said, feel in the front end and get rid of the hint of understeer I had with this car. But overall it was fine. There were a couple of accidents. The big one came on the happy highway over the hump, as usual. I took my foot off the throttle about 3/4 of the way, and it still wasn't enough, and it did this. So yeah, that wasn't the thing. There was all of the little accidents as well, where, you know, I'm hitting bollards and just general lapses in concentration, I think you could call it. So yeah, but overall this car was very, very well balanced. It really was so well balanced, very, very easy to drive. I was expecting something a little bit more difficult, but there we go. What we're going to do now is we're going to take a look at the run. It does have a bit of an uphill struggle because, as we saw from last time out, my nephew picked an absolute monster for the car he wanted in the XJR9 Jaguar. So yeah, it's got a bit of an uphill struggle to try and beat that, but I think it's got a good opportunity of maybe getting second place and competing with the Porsche, but we'll see. So yeah, let's take a look at the run and see how the Ferrari F50 did. Okay then guys, here we go. Ferrari F50 on our Azure Coast hill climb course, and coming through this first corner, booty curve. Very, very good. You know, like I said, the big problem you're going to encounter if you do decide to drive this car is dialing out, not so much understeer, but just getting more of a feel, more feeling in the front end, because it is very, very numb. There's not much communication, but once you wind down the steering ratio and maybe adjust the spring rate and the ride height, you get a little bit of extra downforce, which will give you a little bit of extra feel. But coming through the magic roundabout, very, very good through there, and also down towards Stickman Squats. The big thing that stood out for me with this car was the rear end is so planted. And I didn't do anything to it. There was absolutely nothing to do with it. The only thing you could do adjust downforce wise is the rear wing, and I didn't have to touch it. It was just so planted and so good. There was never, you know, there was maybe a little hint of drama that we're going to see a little bit further in the lap. But apart from that, the only problem you got with here is these crests. This car was so unhappy, and coming through here, very, very good traffic cone corner, but again, this crest, I'm having to just duck off so much speed. I was at 170, come down to 155, so I'm having to screw off 15 miles an hour just to get over those crests without the car going completely airborne. And couple that with the fact that the rear end is so planted, it would lead me to believe that maybe this car is a little bit back heavy. Which is surprising. Normally with racing cars and you know, high-end sports cars, you'd be looking for that 50-50 weight distribution, you know, that perfect setup. But I don't know, this is maybe a bit back heavier, not by just a small margin. I mean, maybe, you know, 55-45 or maybe 60-40. That's how it sort of feels. I can't confirm it because I'm not sure, but like I said, apart from the crests and those little areas, this car was so good. And even though there was still a little bit of a hint of understeer at the front end, overall the front end was still very pointy. It was just maybe I plateaued in terms of my ability, and as you can see, there's a little moment there. But as I was saying, maybe I just plateaued in terms of my ability to set up a suspension, because like I said, I couldn't adjust any downforce. There's no downforce adjustments that I can make to the front end. There's no wings or anything like that. So yeah, we're running a little bit wide there through Silver Spoon, but again, over these little crests, you're just seeing how hesitant I'm having to be just to make sure we get through it. But once we get through that second one, we're away. And like I said, through this sort of area, these you know, slightly banked, undulating corners, it was so good. And Dragon Rock corner as well, very good. Get it down to third gear and away you go again. And I don't know, like I said, I'm just surprised at how well set up this car is. Of all the cars I've driven in this series, this is the one that required the least amount of setup work. And, you know, when Creative Suggestion Guy left his creative suggestion about the F50 and said it was a handful, I was expecting it to be, but it isn't, you know, it's not. The Porsche was a handful, the Jaguar was a handful. This just is... It's so good. And like I said, everybody's different in terms of what they like, in terms of characteristics of a car, but I think universally, whatever you like and however you like a car to be set up, you're not going to have to do much to get this car and to go quickly. And you know, like I said, the only problem area is the one we're in now, the Monga McRae hill complex, because there are so many areas with these little crests where I'm having to just be maybe a little bit hesitant. You haven't seen, just get out of the throttle, and here we go again, just here. And just even when I screw off a lot of speed, there's still moments where the front end is raising. So like I said, it leads me to believe that maybe it's just a little bit back heavy, but through the corners of this complex, it's very, very good. And when you know that the rear end is as planted as this one is, it gives you so much confidence to get out of those corners. It's just like I said, these little crests here are where the problem was, and the braking also was very, very good. There was maybe a little bit of a hint of locking, but you know, it got to a point where if I wound the bias and the pressure down, it just wasn't giving me the braking performance I wanted. So you know, a little bit of locking here and there isn't too bad. But as we come through the tunnel, this is the last little area. I actually went into that wall on the left there, and I don't mean the bottom, I mean the top of the wall. That thing went fully airborne through there on one of my runs, so it just tells you how bad the front end is and how light it is. It's light as a feather. But coming into this final sector, this is where, like with the Jaguar, this is where this car comes alive. These sweeping fast corners is just, you know, right where this Ferrari F50 is at home, and it was just such a joy to drive. As fun as the Jaguar was, it was still a little bit of a challenge through here. It was very, very enjoyable and very planted, but this thing was just so simple to drive quickly, and I think that's one of the hallmarks of a great car in terms of its initial setup. Like I said, out of the box, this thing is very, very good. The front end needs adjustment, but once you've done a little bit of minor adjustment here and there, you know, it's a 2-minute job and you're away. You can go very, very quickly, and then it's just about, you know, sorting out how you're going to take the lap and where you're going to find the time. But like I said, this thing is so, so good. And even like I said, with a hint of understeer coming down into rocky road, which can catch understeery cars out, this thing was still very, very pointy. As long as you have been a bit, you know, a little bit more gentle with your inputs on the throttle and so on, this thing is so, so good. And especially more so because coming through these tunnels, listening to that howling V12 just makes this run oh so much better. But as we come down to the final corner, we're going to get a little bit of understeer on the exit. We managed to keep it out of the barrier though. As we come down to the line and across it, it's going to be a time of 6 minutes 31.932. And I don't mind telling you that at the end of this run, the first word I said was wow. My run before it, which was I was very, very happy with, but I thought maybe I could find a little bit more time in the final sector, was a 6:36.2. So to find what nearest makes no difference, 5 whole seconds. I was down by half a tenth in the first sector. The second sector I was up by about 2 seconds, and then I found a whopping great big chunk of time. I didn't think I could find that much time in the final sector, but I did. And oh, this car was just absolutely astounding. It's not good enough to take top spot, of course. It does take second place, but the fact this thing is just 5 seconds behind the Jaguar, I think just tells you how good this car truly is and how underrated it is. A proper dark horse, an Italian Stallion. And, you know, like I said, it is so, so good. And the fact that this thing is now sitting in 3rd in the full-blown leaderboard as well, you know, I think we all know inherently that the CLK LM is one of the better cars in this class, and the F50 is maybe one of the weaker cars in this class. So to be 7 seconds short of that top spot with that CLK LM, I think that's so, so impressive. It just tells you how good this car is. And if you haven't driven it, guys, I suggest you do. Don't be intimidated by it, because it's so easy to set up. It's one of the easier cars to drive on this course, or any course, I think, for that matter. So yeah, absolutely amazing. Ferrari F50, 3rd place on the global time trial leaderboards there, and 2nd place on our Hill Climb Monsters leaderboard as well. So a very, very good run from the Ferrari F50. So thank you to Creative Suggestion Guy for his suggestion. Very, very good. I will be getting to the F40 at some point a little bit further down the line, but this F50, Montebella. Absolutely brilliant. Absolutely love this car. But that is the end of today's episode, guys. So thank you everybody so much for watching. If you did enjoy this video, you would like to see more Hill Climb Monsters, Project Cars 2, or racing content in general from myself, then make sure you hit that like button and subscribe. Also, if you have suggestions or cars you'd like to see me drive in this series, again, leave a comment down below. As I'm showing, I'm always happy to hear from you, and I'm always happy to put your suggestions to the test in this series. But yeah, again, guys, thank you everybody so much for watching. Also, tomorrow we've got some awesome Gran Turismo Sport content coming at you. It's a very, very good race. We've got now refueling and tyre wear, so it's going to be an interesting one. So make sure you subscribe if you haven't done already. But again, guys, thanks for watching. Take care, and I'll catch you all in the next video. Peace.